Welcome to Be the Good with Kate, the show where guests leave you inspired to uncover your passions and discover tangible ways to make a difference along the way. I'm your host, Kate Chericello-Tente, and here I talk to individuals who are doing just that. Individuals from all walks of life and industries following their passions and making the world a better place while they do. With guests hailing from Bali to Utah, Florida to Japan, and just about everywhere in between, something I love about human connection and inspiration is how you certainly don't need to be from the same place or a similar background to get so much out of hearing from a person. In fact, I think it is better that way. We notice how we as humans are so similar in so many ways, and how each of us has so much power to make a difference in our own lives and the lives of others. I hope you're inspired here to start, restart, or continue your journey of finding your passions and helping others along the way. I love a text saying, "This made me think of you today." If there is someone in your life who could use today's story, click share and send their way. And thank you for helping to inspire more people. Now on to this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate. Today, I'm so pleased to introduce you to Margaret Malishchak. She is a stained glass artist, and we actually are connected because it turns out we are in the same exact town, and that's how she found me. I'm so glad she reached out. She started Glass4Good, where she sells her original stained glass artwork and donates 100% of sales to a variety of social, environmental, and climate justice organizations. And I can't wait to hear more. So Margaret, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
And tell us more about exactly what it is that you're doing here with Glass4Good.
Well, I always had a love of stained glass. I started in my 20s, and I actually learned in a studio that was in Madison. I lived elsewhere at the time, but there was a stained glass studio here, and that's where I learned how to do it. And for about 5 years, I was just totally enchanted with it. It turned out all kinds of work. And then life happened, and I kind of didn't do it for about 25 or 30 years. And then maybe about 8 years ago, my daughter and I were down in the basement, and she's like, "What's in those boxes over there?" And it was my stained glass stuff. And I thought to myself, I wonder if it still works. And so just idly, I pulled it all out. Of course, it still worked because stained glass equipment and doing stained glass in general is one of the most low-tech things you can do. And nothing has changed in those 25 years. People are still doing the same thing. So I thought to myself, I could start doing this again. Yeah. And I did. And very quickly I realized, well, either your house is going to fill up with stained glass panels or you got to figure out something to do with them. And then I thought, maybe I'll sell them and I'll donate the money. So that's where it started. And it really launched right after I retired, which was at the end of 2020. So I've been doing this now for 4 years.
Oh, excellent. And was there ever a thought in your head that you were going to sell it for a profit, or did you want to donate the proceeds from day one?
You know, stained glass a stained glass hobby is expensive. The materials are expensive. You need a lot of different things. If I wanted to cover my costs, there's no way I could. So pretty much I said to myself right from the very beginning, I'm just giving it all away. Like Paul Newman, let's give it all away.
Oh, that's just, it's so wonderful and a great reminder too for people. I love how you pointed out that you did it in your 20s, you stopped for 25 or 30 years and you picked it right back up, because sometimes it's really hard to have to say goodbye to something you love, but it's a not forever thing. You can always go back to something.
Right. I never thought I would go back to it.
Yeah.
But my daughter was kind of the spark that got me going again. And it was just a wonderful thing.
How about that? Now, were you an artist as a child too? Is it in your family? Like, how did you find it in your 20s?
My grandfather was a painter,
Okay.
amateur, but I think that's the only person I can say had any artistic talent.
Gotcha.
And I don't know, I've had a love of glass all my life. I do like to doodle and draw little drawings and, just look at different color combinations and things like that. And I've always been kind of crafty, like I did a lot of crochet, I did knitting, I did, various crafts along the way. But I really, I'm not really sure where this love of stained glass came from.
Well, it's really neat. It's not one of the art mediums you hear about every day. At least I sure don't. So I think that's really a neat thing too. And when you started doing it again in 2020, how did you start to get the word out about what you were doing?
I developed a website, that first thing. And, I started putting people on my mailing list. And during the pandemic, of course, it was hard to do any in-person events.
Mhm.
But once I could go out back to the farmers market or craft shows or that kind of thing, then I started to add more people. And just little by little, I built up my mailing list. And that's kind of how that evolved.
Well, that's great. And now you talked about the low tech aspect of stained glass. Now, did you know anything about web marketing and all of this, or was that all new
No.
to you?
As a matter of fact, I still don't know very much. However, my son had a friend that was doing website development, and I tried to get him interested into doing a website for me, and it just didn't like he wasn't answering my emails. And finally, my husband said to me, "Why don't you look at Constant Contact,
Mhm.
which is a web hosting service?" And so I did, and I just figured it out myself. I mean, there's been a lot of calls to the helpline, but I just kind of figured it out. So,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
think also a great reminder, if there's a listener out there who's like, I want to do something with my crafting skills or any kind of skills where I could sell something to donate, and they're like, oh my gosh, but the online aspect is so daunting. These are great reminders. You reach out to others, or there are ways that they really break things down. Heck, for my website, I'm no tech person, but it was pretty much follow the instructions and you
Plug
could
it
figure it
in,
out.
plug it in. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
there's there's probably plenty of things that I could do that I am not doing. For example, I'm not on Facebook. I am on Instagram, but I'm not on Facebook. I am considering opening a Facebook account for Glass4Good.
Mm.
My hesitation has been that I kind of wanted to keep this project fairly local.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
don't want to really be having to mail glass panels all over the country, although I
Mhm.
have, I
Yeah.
certainly have. But I really would rather just hand deliver it to somebody or find a place that we can meet in between or something like that.
Oh, that's fairly nice, especially that, again, you're giving your materials, your time, all of this. It's a lot from you. And when you decide where to donate the proceeds, does the customer contribute to that? Do you have a list of places that you give to? How does that come about?
In the beginning, I would say the first 2 years, sorry, I had five different organizations that I was donating to, which I believe were Nourish New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter, um, CATA, which is a farm workers organization down in South Jersey, the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, and PeaceWorks, which does humanitarian aid to Nicaragua, but it's based in Madison, actually.
Oh, wow.
And I gave people the choice for the first couple of years which of those organizations they wanted to donate to. But a lot of people said to me, well, just whichever one you think is best, or whichever one doesn't have the most, people donating to
Yeah.
it this cycle or whatever. So eventually I decided I would change the organization myself every month. And I did that in 2023, I guess I started that. And then this year, I've kind of been doing it more like quarterly.
Okay.
So, for example, for the last 3 months, I've been donating to World Central Kitchen.
Yeah. Great. I think that's a really neat way to learn about a lot of other nonprofits out there too. It's funny you said Nourish New Jersey. I actually have a tab open on my computer right now. I'm one of those people who has 40 tabs open at all times. Right now, one of them's Nourish New Jersey because I just heard about them for the first time recently and I wanted to look into them. So I think this is a really cool way, I'm sure, for you personally to learn about more organizations. And then you become a person who then is sharing with the people around you. And these are ways that people find out and that we can all be more of a help to organizations as well.
Well, and also these organizations at times reach out to me. Like they do galas, they do fundraisers, they do golf outings, and
Yes.
they might have a silent auction or something. Can I donate a panel? Sure, I'm happy to donate a panel. So that's another way for more local people to hear about what I'm doing.
That's great. And
Yes.
again, this is you're giving us so many reminders for listeners too today of like if you want to give back, another way, add to the list of ways to give back, donating to a silent auction. That's a great way. I
Oh,
know just
yeah.
having put silent auctions together, we're always looking for beautiful pieces or experiences or, all of these sorts of things. So that's a great idea for people to give back.
And another, really positive thing that's kind of evolved out of all of this is as people are hearing about what I'm doing, a lot of people are giving me glass, which is a
Oh,
wonderful thing because glass is very, very expensive. I mean, and there really are no big glass houses around here, so you have to buy it online, and you never quite know what it's going to look like when it arrives. You see it online, but it's not quite the same when it gets here. So I've had a number of people, for example, I'll give you some examples. I had a woman a couple of years ago who lived in the James Building in downtown Madison. The big old gorgeous building on the corner of, you know it, right?
yeah. Is it
Yeah.
Waverly? Is that where it is? Anyway,
No,
well,
no, Green Village Road, on the corner
Green
of Green
Village, yes,
Village
that
Road.
one.
That big
Madison, New
old
Jersey, if the
gorgeous
listener
building.
doesn't know Madison, New Jersey, there's lots of beautiful buildings downtown.
Right, right. So she lived in that building in the attic, or sort of next to the attic. And she said, there's a bunch of old stained glass in the attic. Do you want it? And I said, of course I want it. So she gave it to me. And I made a whole lot of pieces out of that glass that, of course, people in Madison were very, very eager to buy.
Yeah.
And the interesting story that somebody told me about that glass is that I have no idea if this is literally true, by the way. But somebody told me that during World War II, well, that there used to be like a cupola, a stained glass cupola on the top of the James Building. And during World War II, they dismantled it because they didn't want to attract the attention of planes. So, the thing got dismantled. That's what somebody told me.
And that's how it
Um,
ended up. I
yeah.
always love the good old town stories that we never sure about the origins, right?
Right, right. And another thing that happened in 2024 that has been just an absolute boon to my business was that I don't know if you remember the restaurant called Snuffy's, which was down in Scotch Plains. It was a big wedding venue, like big fancy restaurant. Had a lot of stained glass ceilings and walls. And it closed at the beginning of the pandemic. And through a contact of a contact, basically, I got a crate of this glass from Snuffy's. And then there was an article in NJ.com that I was making stuff out of the Snuffy's glass. People came from everywhere because they got married at Snuffy's, or their
Oh,
parents got married there, or their sister, or, one woman told me the last dance she ever had with her dad before he died was at Snuffy's.
oh,
And
wow.
just all these heart touching stories. And so you can see on my website, there's a whole section of the pieces that I made from the Snuffy's glass. And I eventually did a couple of online silent auctions with
Mhm.
this stuff because I didn't have enough to meet all the demand. And I just said to myself, if I was keeping the money, I would feel a little sleazy about this, but I'm giving every bit of it away. So let's see what the market will bear.
Right.
And I did tremendously well from those online silent auctions.
Well, haven't you donated? It's been $15,700, right? You've been
Right,
donated
right.
already?
Yeah, in the
That's
last four
incredible.
years. Yeah.
From one night in your basement clearing out boxes, deciding to pick up an old hobby, now 4 years later, $15,700 you donated to
Yeah.
organizations. That's
I know what
incredible.
sometimes when I add it up, I amaze myself.
Yeah, it
But the
should.
thing is, I always want to credit, all my supporters because yes, I sort of consider this project to be a triple win because an organization gets a donation. Um, a person who buys a glass panel gets a nice piece of artwork for not a whole lot of money. I intentionally set my prices quite low. And I get to make more stained glass. So, it's like a triple win.
Beautiful perspective. And now, what something I thought was really interesting is the stained glass is you call it abstract. Like, what style would you describe?
I would say, yes, I would call it abstract.
Okay.
Fundamentally, I'm not a very good a drawer of anything representational. Like I really couldn't draw you, or I couldn't
Okay.
draw a dog, or I couldn't draw, I can do very basic things, but what I often do is I kind of work very intuitively. Like
Yeah.
I'll just sit down and I'll draw something just off the top of my head, and 90% of the time I like it and I want to make it into stained glass. And then as I'm going along, sometimes it changes, or a piece of glass breaks and I don't have any more of that glass, so I have to like change the design in the middle of it. Or, something I decide halfway that I want to do it a different way. I just sort of let the each piece evolve as I'm going along.
I
Um,
love you have the bell bottom. What's the
Bell
title?
bottom
Something bell.
blues. Oh, yes, yes.
Yes, and what I thought was this is kind of the style of a lot of them, right? You look at it and you don't specifically see, oh, a pair of jeans on a person,
Yes,
but the essence of it, you say, oh my gosh, it's absolutely a bell bottom. It's the essence, and it makes for a really good conversation piece, I bet, as well.
I love naming them. I should say I love naming most of them because
Okay.
sometimes I get very stuck. But if you're, of a certain age, that is to say, my age, you will recognize that a lot of my names have to do with rock songs from, my youth. And I do love naming them. I have a lot of, kind of kooky names. And one of the things that I always want to come forth in my work is a sense of whimsy. I want it
Mm.
to be whimsical and fun and funny and thought-provoking. I just, I admire very linear, very, very precise, stained glass panels, but I just don't want to do those. In fact, I want to get even wilder than I've been already. I
Oh,
want to,
how fun.
yeah, yeah.
The what is it that like surprises you most about where you are right now with life and this hobby that's become so much more than that?
I think what I said before, the amount of support that I've gotten. I mean, I'll add it up every now and then, and I just am amazed by how much money it's been. And I'm not stopping. I'm continuing.
Wow. Margaret, you are, I mean, it's right in the title of Glass4Good. You're such an example of being the good. And I really love this local focus. You've given so many reminders to people too about how we can give back, being creative about how we can give back. And where can people find you and your art online to reach out to you?
I am on Instagram at Glass4Good, glass, and then the number four, good 2020. And my website, I don't know it off the top of my head, but Kate tells me it'll be in the materials. So.
It'll be in the show notes.
No, certainly anybody could email me to it, glass4good2020 at gmail.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Margaret, I can't thank you enough. And I hope I run into you in town one of these days
Yes,
soon
I
as
bet we
well.
will. Good luck to you. And thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this helpful, a 5-star review, like, or comment means the world to me. And if you found insight in this episode, chances are someone else will too. Share with a friend to give them a boost today. Until next time, I'm Kate Cherichello-Tente, and this was Be the Good with Kate.